Hello, I'm Terrydavidmulligan from Mulligan Stew, but I'm also a member of the Critics' Choice Association in Los Angeles, proudly, for many years now. And every year, a whole bag of us get to screen about 200, 300, 400 documentaries, depending on the year. And then we make our recommendations. We agree to disagree in some cases, but we have great dialogue with all these critics about what is a great documentary and which ones are the standouts. We're going to find out how well we did in our nominations because the final voting is done. And Sunday night at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 Pacific, the 2023 Critics' Choice Documentary Awards will be handed out in New York City. The show will be live streamed on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and the Critics' Choice Association website. Joining me, Sean Edwards from the Board of Directors of Critics' Choice and a good friend, and WDAF-TV in Kansas City, Paul Salfin from KTXD in Dallas, Texas, and Wilson Morales from blackfilmandtv.com in the Bronx, New York City. He's going to the show. So we'll give you all those details on the screen. Here we go with our conversation with Sean, Paul, and Wilson Morales. My name is Terrydavidmulligan, and this is a special edition of Critics' Choice, The Chat. Sean Edwards has joined me again. You remember Sean from previous conversations. He's in Kansas City, WDAF-TV, and he's on the board of directors of Critics' Choice. Paul Salfin, who I'm just meeting for the first time, literally, is in Dallas. And we'll throw some credits your way in just a second, KTXD-TV. And Wilson Morales in the Bronx still, Wilson? You haven't moved. Blackfilmandtv.com in the Bronx. The whole idea is that we have spent not all of the summer, but most of the summer watching documentaries. Mm-hmm. Did anybody get a head count on how many we saw?
Oh, that's a good question.
You lose track. You lose track between watching it on links and going in person to see these movies. You know, I used to do that when I first started out, like averaging 36 movies a month. But then once we got into streaming and you got links, it just doubled.
Yeah.
So
I don't count.
I wonder what was the total that was sent to us. Did anybody see that count?
I don't count. I don't count because I still love watching movies. And if you start counting, it takes the joy away. I just watch. All watch. Right. I don't count.
Yeah.
This is the 8th annual. Have you all been there for the 8?
Not all 8, but I've been to quite a few.
If there was in New York, I've been there for all 8, yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I've been there for 6 of them. I think there's only 2 that I've missed.
Okay, have you put your votes in?
I voted.
I did. Mm-hmm.
I have voted.
Me too.
Was it hard? What did it feel like?
For me, it was extremely difficult because this is a very, very, very good year for documentaries. I actually enjoyed watching docs this year more so than the feature films that have come out in 2023. And there's so many great documentaries in every category. It was truly very difficult to decide, but I got through it. And there are a couple that I really, really love. So that kind of made it easier in some categories, but overall it's really competitive.
Okay, that's what I thought, because we could spend literally 30 minutes just going over titles, but I thought maybe we could just concentrate on the ones that stayed with us. Like that's why I love doing the documentary summers, and that is because you're looking for 1 or 2 or 3 or maybe a half dozen that stay with you. You tell people about, you can't wait to see them come out. So let me start with you, Paul. Did you have specialties? They want to know, like I told them, listen, I deal 24/7 in music, food and wine, travel, people, conversations. What were your specialties? What did you look for?
Well, I actually have come to go to love all of them. You know, I'll be honest with you. I hadn't been interested in political documentaries previously to Critics' Choice. You know, for some reason, there's been some kind of disconnect. But I've been enjoying it. There's several of them that were really, really good. You know, I've been a big music person myself. So any kind of music documentary, you know, has always been a big thing for me. And, you know, just really interesting people in history. So speaking of which, you know, so I tend towards those those little bios. And you know, since you like music documentaries, of course, still the Michael J. Fox story, which is directed by Davis Guggenheim, who did It Might Get Loud. Which was a fantastic music documentary. You know, that one, of course, stood out. You know, it's just like with the regular Critics' Choice Awards, you start to narrow it down, you know, and you notice that almost all the critics end up with the same, you know, about 10 or so. And there's a good reason why, because there's so many good ones, but there are those ones that just stand out. And I think that's probably one of the ones you'll keep hearing about.
How about you, Wilson?
You know, I'm still watching documentaries, and there's one of those, the ones that really stood out was Kokomo City, obviously, which one played at Sun, and it's had a good run. And you know, just to tell that story, and even though it had tragedy after the movie was released, where one of the transgender actresses in the movie was killed, that tells you, you know, the world that they're living in, you know, and so it's not just an entertaining movie, because you know documentaries are not meant to entertain; they're just trying to tell you a story. Here's a story that's still playing out in today's lives, and also to sentiment, Paul. You know, I like still. You know, we've all known Michael J. Fox's story. You know, and sometimes you go in there like, I don't want to see him depressed or whatever, but he made it fun. He made it interesting, and then when you watched it, Davis was smart enough to pull out clips of stuff that you had not seen before. Yeah, you know, and mixed it in, you know, and so that you walk away, you know, joyful that the guy is still breathing, and you know, he knows he's complacent. Well, I wouldn't say complacent. He's cool with the condition he has, and he's making so, you know, day by day. Okay, you mentioned Kokomo. You kind of hiccuped the audio, but that title you were talking about was Kokomo City, right? Yes, Kokomo City, directed by D. Smith. Good, thank you, Sean Edwards.
Yeah, the documentary that really stuck with me was 20 Days of Mariupol. It gives you a whole new perspective on the war in the Ukraine. Just one of the most powerful documentaries I've ever seen, period, point blank. Just fantastic filmmaking, but also important filmmaking and urgent filmmaking. I did really appreciate Kokomo City. I like documentaries that take me to a world that I know nothing about. I love the subject matter. I love the look. I love the feel. I love how they tackled that issue. It's very bold. It's daring. It's audacious. And then for personal reasons, one of my favorite documentaries this year is the documentary on the Negro Leagues Museum. I thought that was just a great documentary, not only because the Negro Leagues was created and founded in Kansas City, where I live, but they did a fantastic job of taking all those years of history and just really compartmentalizing it into 2 hours and telling a really terrific story, guided by the director of the Negro Leagues Museum, Bob Kendrick, who is a fantastic storyteller. And I just love the way that film explored that rich history that took place back in the days when Black ball players were not allowed to play in Major League Baseball.
And in fact, it took my breath away. I just loved that. It gave me everything I wanted to see, and then the surprises came.
And I will disagree with this one point with Wilson. Some documentaries are entertaining. I thought Kokomo City was highly entertaining, and the league is there are quite a few of these documentaries that are entertaining, but they do also to educate. Yeah,
educating. You know, and that's what I meant by entertaining is like, you know, when you say Kokomo City, it's like, okay, you know, obviously some of these directors are producers as well. So they know that when they're in the editing room, they have to find a mark that's going to still entertain you. And I'm sure there's somebody there with them saying, you're dragging it too long. Remember, they have all these hours of footage. That's the thing about documentary. They have all these hours of footage, and the hardest part is being in the editing room and nipping it down to 2 hours or 90 minutes.
But I love Kokomo City. All the subjects, everybody featured in that documentary was they were both hilarious and insightful. Like you don't really see that too often. Like they were entertaining as hell.
Yeah.
The reason, by the way, one of the reasons why Sean and I wanted to do this was because the dialogue that was going on, the chat room that was going on about the documentaries was fantastic. It was unbelievable. People were jumping lines. It was wonderful. So I thought, well, let's do a Zoom video version of it. Sean, given the details on the first of all, just so we understand why we're getting excited about this, after all of these screenings, we finally have the awards. When are they, and how are they seen?
Yeah, the awards take place on Sunday, November the 12th. They will be live streamed on the Critics' Choice at criticschoice.org. They'll also be live streamed on Critics' Choice Facebook page, the Critics' Choice Twitter, now known as X page, and you can keep up with all the details right there. They start at 7 p.m. Eastern time. That's 4 p.m. Pacific time. And it's a great show, and there are a lot of great filmmakers will be in the house because there were so many terrific movies and documentaries this year.
All right, the documentary, you didn't ask me, but I'll tell you anyway. The documentary that
what was yours? What was yours?
I had two people that I knew that I had spent time with. Michael J. Fox. He was 14 or 15 working in the next studio doing a comedy. I was doing another comedy at the CBC. We would see each other over the course of the shooting, and we got to know each other really well. And then he said, I'm heading for LA. So, okay, fine. And then after years later, I'm doing auditions in Los Angeles because I'm living in San Francisco, and I'm doing this family comedy, and I did the best I could. I thought I did well. I didn't get it. I just realized later when I saw the series that it was his family ties. I was reading for the role of his dad.
Oh,
and
wow.
we laughed about that. Now, here's the thing about this film. First of all, the editing was incredible. But Michael was the same Michael that left as a 16-year-old. He hadn't changed, even through the fame and all of the ups and downs of his life. His family held him together, and that's the guy. He hasn't changed. So very true to that. So that big marks for me on that one. And the other one was the editing. I thought the editing was incredible. Let me take you to the best documentary feature, guys, because this is your mother lode. This is why we spent our summer screening those documentaries. Which one stands out for you? Wilson?
Still. I'll go with Still.
Okay. That's a Michael J. Fox movie. How about you, Paul?
Well, I would say the same thing, but also I thought The Deepest Breath was really entertaining in a way because, a lot of it, they had filmed each other, the two, main subjects, and it played out a lot like a narrative feature, like you're kind of wrapped in it as opposed to, a history lesson maybe that some of them are, but we had some great ones. American Symphony was great.
Yes, I was waiting for that.
Judy Bloom Forever was fun. I mean, like they're if you look at the list of the ones that are nominated, they're all good.
They're all good, and you have to be very special to make that list. You really do. How about you, Sean?
Well, I mean, if I'm going to choose one that stood out for me, I really like the film Stamped from the Beginning on Netflix, directed by Roger Ross Williams, or Academy Award winning Roger Ross Williams, who's like just a terrific filmmaker across all genres. That movie really stuck with me personally. Now, I don't think it has a chance to win, but it was one of my personal favorites. But I also liked a lot of the musical documentaries as well. I mean, I found the Little Richard documentary like completely fascinating. I mean, because he was such an icon. He was such a pioneer. I love the energy of that film, and I love that they went below the surface to really dig up some information that I didn't know about. And I thought I knew a lot about Little Richard. And I like when documentaries take me on a journey off the basic path down a different road that I had never explored before. And that documentary did that very well. And then, of course, I'm a huge fan of Kokomo City. I like it when films are audacious. I like it when films make you feel uncomfortable. I like it when films push certain buttons that you don't think should be pushed. And that film does that.
That's what documentaries are really doing. And we'll talk about that in just a second. I loved Americans. I love any storyline about Jean-Baptiste. I'm going to follow.
Yeah.
I just am, because he's a fascinating guy. The music that he makes keeps changing, and he's a shapeshifter. And I'm all over him. I love that, and I love the journey that film took us on. But still, for me, it's Still. That's the one. I think that will be the big winner. But what do I know? I don't.
No, I will agree with you on that. I mean, because as a kid, I grew up with Michael J. Fox. I mean, you work with Michael J. Fox. I grew up with Michael J. Fox. I mean, Back to the Future.
We're all biased because we're old enough to remember Michael J. Fox.
Exactly. That's what you call biased voting.
I
Yeah,
tell you
I
what,
mean,
this would be a freaky conversation if I had ended up being his dad on the series. But that script was tattered, had coffee stains all over it. That a lot of guys had their hands on that script. They were looking.
I love Michael J. Fox. I love what they did with that documentary. I agree with you as well. I do believe that will be the big winner. I mean, it was one of my favorites. I mean, like we've been saying the whole conversation, a lot of these films are, I mean, we could have this conversation tomorrow and I could change because there was just so much good stuff. I mean, how do you decide? I mean, it's really hard. And all of these documentaries are important, and all of these documentaries paint a fantastic picture of just the human condition. I mean, all of these do in such a wonderful and creative way. I mean, we haven't even talked about like what I thought technically was the best documentary, which was Occupied City, directed by Steve McQueen. Just from a technical standpoint, I don't see how that documentary doesn't win for best director, because the execution of Occupy City is unlike anything I've ever seen before. And Steve McQueen is such a master filmmaker that if nothing else, that film should win for best directing.
Well, he's on that best director list. Now, let's go back to something Sean said right at the top. He being our host and all. He said it's a great year for documentary. I think it is the best year I've ever seen and been involved in. It's fascinating. But I mean, the general rule of thumb about documentaries is, they're all pretty dark and tear jerking. But there's humor, there's pathos, there's tragedy, there's a roller coaster ride, and then you give yourself to it. It was a great year, yeah.
No, I would say I agree with you.
Yeah, I would say, you think about it, because of the strike, and a lot of these actors have not been out to promote their films, whereas documentaries have remained constant. The DGA was able to settle early, and so you had those guys out there promoting their films. They were able to get more spotlight than some of these other movies. If you're not a tentpole movie, that doesn't have the money for the ads on television and on movies or whatever, then then documentaries are on the same, they're on the same level playing field. But they're out there talking that you can promote a film, like Still and Kokomo City, because a lot of these documentaries are speaking to different people. You've got American Symphony, where your people are knowing about John Baptiste. You've got the Little Richard story,
You're freezing on us, buddy.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, I just think that the art form is elevated. The art form of the documentary is elevated.
Oh yeah, and also there's one that didn't get nominated, but the Saying Second Chances I thought was hilarious, and it played out, also kind of like a feature as well. But I mean, there's so many funny moments in that, and and then they did some recreation stuff in there that was really cool. But the thing is, there are a lot of them. They're not the same docs that probably we grew up with.
Yeah, that's true. That's a great point. Yeah. The art form is completely changed. And like you said, my favorite documentary of the year didn't get nominated either, which is Dear Mama, which aired on FX. The Tupac story.
Yeah.
All right. By the way, a couple of things. Best sports documentary. I think we're all into sports at one time or another. Which one did you like? Anybody? Black Eyes, BS High, The Deepest Breath, It Ain't Over, The League, Reggie, Stephen Curry, or Welcome to Wrexham.
You already know. I'm going with The League, the documentary on the Negro baseball leagues, just because it was, Kansas City's the home of the museum, but it was a really terrific film.
Yeah, that was a tough one, because you got The League and you got BSI. BSI was a trip to watch, to see how these guys pulled it off. And you got this one guy who's got the hubris to say, hey, I finally got caught, but look what I was able to accomplish. Got all these kids coming out there thinking they're going to go to college, and it's not even anything legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
Over to you, Paul.
Paul?
Well, The League for sure, but I guess if I had to pick one, just to have a different, It Ain't Over was pretty great too. Yeah.
Okay. By the way, if anybody who wants to socially dig at us because it's a boys' club, I just want you to know that we also asked Terry Hart and Bonnie Loffer Krebs to join us from Toronto, and both of them, one was out for a walk and one was in another meeting. So, but I love this. I would love to do it with a full screen just to see if we could get some fist fights going on, and. So it's important, Sean, if you will, as the board of director member in residence, please tell us when and where these awards happen.
Now, the 8th annual Critics' Choice Association Documentary Awards will take place Sunday, November the 12th, 7 p.m. Eastern time, and you can watch the live stream on all the Critics' Choice social media platforms.
Fantastic. Sean Edwards, Kansas City, Paul Salfin in Dallas, and Wilson Morales in the Bronx, New York City. Thank you, guys. Whatever you were doing, but Wilson, when he got a hold of you and said, "Hey, can you do this?" Oh, by the way, one more thing. The short documentaries, I found I could I could watch and have a tub at the same time. That's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Even that category is tough. All the categories are tough, man. I just wish Dear Mama would have slid in there, but you can't have it all.
And you know what? It's going to be a really entertaining show. And Sean, we should mention our host, who's fantastic.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Tee it up. You can go ahead.
No, go ahead. I love this dude. In fact, he had hosted before, and it was fantastic. Wyatt is a great comedian, but also a really good host. And sometimes those are not the same thing.
No.
But he's one of those ones that they keep the show rolling, make you laugh, and something that you'll want to see. Like it's worth tuning in just check out whatever he says in the beginning, the opening monologue.
Watch the live. Yeah, it's worth it. Watch the live stream. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great, man. And the winners give fantastic speeches, so it's gonna be a great night.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. I promised I wouldn't keep you long. Thank you for this. I appreciate it. I'm going to keep these notes and have a great Sunday night at the awards. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Critics' Choice.